And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Take Action News this Saturday, February 23rd. This is the show where we go through the week's events and tell you how you can take action to influence outcomes. I'm Daniel Marins, executive producer of Take Action News, in for David Shuster this week, who is on his honeymoon with his lovely new wife, Kira Rennert. We wish them all the best and congratulations as they take their vacation in the Appalachian Mountains, believe it or not. They, of course, are also, and it is not news at this point, expecting a child, and we wish them all the best. And Kira, a happy and healthy pregnancy. We've got a great show in store for you folks today, and we want to give a shout out to all our listeners on We Act Radio right here in Washington, D.C. area, as well as our listeners on WCBT Chicago's Progressive Talk in the Chicago area, our listeners in Columbus, Ohio, Grand Rapids, Michigan, parts of Oklahoma, and across the nation. Got a great show. A lot happened this week. A lot was in the news. But first, before we get to some of our other policy issues, the big story this week was sequestration, alternately known as the Sequester. Those are the automatic spending cuts that are slated to take effect on March 1st if Congress does nothing. Now, you may be wondering, how did this occur? Well, back in the debt ceiling negotiations of the summer of 2011, they could not reach a deal to extend the debt ceiling unless they created a system wherein if the super committee, a group of 12 members of Congress, could not come up with $1.2 trillion in cuts, those cuts would take effect automatically. Now, the sequestration, and of course the super committee cannot come to an agreement, and so the sequestration was set to occur. Now, there are many programs that are exempt from these automatic spending cuts: Social Security, Medicare, and low-income programs. They would result in $500 billion in immediate spending cuts to defense in particular. Now, what would that mean right away on March 1st? Those cuts would amount to about $85 billion in across-the-board spending cuts throughout the entire federal government. That basically means, experts tell us, that every single federal agency that is subject to sequestration, including the United States military, the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Social Security Administration, again, not the checks themselves, but the administration and its offices, the Federal Aviation Administration, the people that regulate our planes and inspect our planes, the air traffic controllers, federal workers, you name it, federal law enforcement officials. Each of those agencies would face a 7 to 8% across-the-board cut and would have to make very, very difficult, if not impossible, budget choices. People believe it could make it very, very hard for our federal government to function. The president addressed this issue on Tuesday with a crowd of first responders behind him. He called on Congress to act to avoid what he called the sequestration's meat cleaver cuts. Here's what he had to say.
Now, if Congress allows this meat cleaver approach to take place, it will jeopardize our military readiness. It will eviscerate job-creating investments in education and energy and medical research. It won't consider whether we're cutting some bloated program that has outlived its usefulness or a vital service that Americans depend on every single day. It doesn't make those distinctions.
The president, of course, making the argument that because these cuts through sequestration are across the board, because they are immediate and indiscriminate, perhaps while some of the spending cuts in there could be redirected in a certain way that would be useful, having the cuts be across the board in an indiscriminate way would potentially bring the government to a halt, would bring the economy to a halt, and also probably would not be smart policy. Obviously, he was standing in front of first responders, emphasizing that some of those same folks are federal emergency medical technicians, the people that work in our armed forces, the people that work in federal law enforcement would be the jobs that would be jeopardized. In fact, that is specifically what he emphasized, but he also talked about furloughs in government across the board. Here's what he had to say.
Emergency responders, like the ones who are here today, their ability to help communities respond to and recover from disasters will be degraded. Border Patrol agents will see their hours reduced. FBI agents will be furloughed. Federal prosecutors will have to close cases and let criminals go.
Now, of course, the president did emphasize other aspects of the discretionary spending cuts, medical research, schools, important funding for those things. But notice that he focused on law enforcement and the military. okay? Things that are not considered partisan issues. The ability of our police, our emergency medical services, our federal law enforcement, our immigration and border patrol to function in a normal and positive way. Those are things that will appeal, presumably, also to rank-and-file Republicans, and that is why he emphasized them. He also spoke about the effects of sequestration, the threat of sequestration has already had on our military readiness. Here's what he had to say.
And already the threat of these cuts has forced the Navy to delay an aircraft carrier that was supposed to deploy to the Persian Gulf. And as our military leaders have made clear, changes like this, not well thought through, not phased in properly, changes like this affect our ability to respond to threats in unstable parts of the world.